It was a dark autumn evening. The wind swept dried leaves around the cemetery gates with a haunting rustle. Elara, the town's elderly and cantankerous caretaker, walked with heavy steps among the tombstones, her lantern in hand. As the full moon pierced through the foggy air like a blade, the silhouette of the old church in the distance rose like an eerie shadow. With every step, Elara's lantern illuminated the diabolical grin of a carved pumpkin. The candlelight, hidden inside the pumpkin, flickered like the final breath of a soul on the verge of vanishing. Elara had been a caretaker in this cemetery for many years. Every night she had the same dream, waking up with the same cold sweats. In her dream, she was the one lying on the bed, but the candles burning around her only intensified the coldness of the room, and the moonlight filtering through the windows was like a dirge sung for frozen souls. It was so realistic that even upon waking, she thought she could still feel the weight of the quilt and the scent of soot from the candles. This room was like a sentence etched into Elara's mind. Tonight, the dream came to life in the cemetery. Elara felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Suddenly, a silhouetted figure in a black cloak emerged from the mist. This was the Shadow, mentioned in the town's legends, the one who resurrected the dead. The shadow opened its arms toward the full moon, and a whisper echoed in Elara's ears, vibrating the very tombstones. The earth trembled as if with spirits rising from beneath. Elara stood frozen. Before her eyes, an ancient grave opened. The soil heaved as if pushed by a resurrecting body. The coffin lid creaked open, and a cloaked skeletal hand reached out from within. This was the ancient curse leaping out of Elara's dreams, a manifestation of the town's forgotten sins. Unable to endure this nightmare any longer, Elara dropped her lantern and began to run toward the cemetery exit, into the mist, without looking back. As she turned onto the town road, breathless, the wet streets shining under the moonlight seemed to promise salvation. However, under the dark street lamps, she saw that ominous figure, its cloak fluttering in the wind, still waiting for her. A wolf's howl echoed in the distance, a sound that was both a threat and a calling. When Elara reached the great arched gate at the edge of town, she saw a dark rider galloping away. Perhaps someone else had managed to escape this curse, or perhaps that rider was the last hope leaving Elara to this dark fate. The houses with faint lights leaking from their windows and the desolate church stood as silent witnesses to Elara's despair. Finally, Elara understood. The place she was fleeing from was not the cemetery, but her own destiny. The yellow lights seeping from the mansion's windows were no longer a home for her, but an eternal prison. As the sound of footsteps echoing on the town's misty roads faded away, Elara became a part of that dusty room and those dark streets from her dreams. And so, with every new moonrise, Elias's soul mingled with the lights leaking from the windows of that dark mansion. Shadowtown continued to live on with its forgotten sins and the curse of the eternal vigil. Because some places are not meant just to be visited, but to never be left.